So when I did this topic as a masterclass at EBSA a couple of weeks ago, it took 2 hours between whatever I had to say and the discussions that ensued. 2 hours, right? Can I get some time here? About 2 hours? Okay, I'll just give you a trailer, but I want to open up a discussion. I want to get you thinking about something very, very differently. And that something is our kids, the next generation, the future. In a sense, I'm happy that I'm the last speaker because I've heard such wonderful things being said. Like, for example, the talk on innovation and the talk on just creating things. Now, I have seen that promised land. Trust me when I tell you, I've seen innovation and creation like you've never seen before. And I'm going to tell you some stories. Okay, but first and foremost, I'm going to ask you a question. And this is going to shift your thinking around your kids. I'm actually asking you to look at our kids very differently. What is your vision for your kids or grandkids? If it's, I'm going to send them to school, I'm going to send them to university, get an education, go get a job. My question to you is that it? That's a bit utilitarian, isn't it? That's like aiming for an end that Allah has already promised you. He's going to provide the rosy. He's going to provide the rizq. But is that all a Muslim child is capable of? That's like everybody else. There's nothing special about a Muslim child that's doing those things. What we need is to go back to the Quran. And we heard the same being said over and over. What is our why? What is the reason we are here in this world? And Allah Ta'ala makes it so clear. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. You've been brought forth for mankind, for the guidance of mankind. Now, if our vision for our children is going to be that you are going to be a leader, no matter what field you get into. To be a leader, you don't have to be a politician. You don't have to be a Maulvi Saab. You don't have to be a Mufti Saab. You can be just about anybody, even a street sweeper, and give leadership in your space. But if that intention, that why is put into them from the youngest age, then you will find this ummah slowly coming together, like it did in the past when Rasulullah ﷺ moved from Makkah to Medina. Do you think that everything was kumbaya, peaceful between the Muhajirin and the Ansar? No, they had serious bust-ups. They had serious problems between themselves. But Rasulullah ﷺ always brought them back to their why. What are we trying to do here? And so, despite us having all these issues, all these problems, if we all know that why, ukhrijat linnas, then the problems are forgotten. Social problems are gone because we are focusing on the guidance of mankind. But yet, we say to our kids, go to school, 12 years, do your mathematics homework, go to university. Listen, they're not buying that anymore. We say our kids are not motivated because they're not buying that nonsense anymore. We did what we were told to do. I'm a 1975 model. Because we were skrik, right? The Maulvi Sahib is going to give you one backhand or the teacher is going to give you a backhand. So we did what we needed to do. Today's kids are different. You know why? Because they are Generation Y. They are the most purpose-driven, intelligent human beings that I have personally ever met, and I'm going to tell you a story. Everybody loves stories. It was a few years ago, I was teaching coding to some grade 8s in Durban. And I was teaching them game development. Along the course of the lesson, the one youngster comes up to me. And he says to me, "Sir, I found a better way of doing this code than you did." I said, "Nope, I'm a software engineer. You're a grade 8 kid. What do you know?" But when I looked at his code, sure enough, his code was a lot more concise, maybe not as elegant, but a lot more concise than mine. Quicker than mine. And so that got me down the rabbit hole to think about what is it about this kid and what is it about this subject, because I used to teach maths also, and I've never seen that kind of innovation, that kind of commitment in my maths classes. I mean, I would have to force them to do maths, and I'm a good maths teacher, I would say. And so I went down that rabbit hole to try and figure out what motivates them. Because when those kids came to my classes, they did solution upon solution upon solution. They just created stuff. The moment I gave them a bit of knowledge, they just created stuff upon stuff. One dad calls me up. He says, Bilal, what have you done to my son? I says, what happened? He says, he forgets to even go to the toilet. He's so engrossed in his coding, only when that bug is gone, then he remembers, wait, I have to go to the toilet. And then he would dart to the toilet. So what is it about kids that motivates them when it came to coding? And then I found the answer by speaking to the kids. Stop, collaborate, and listen, right? Listen to what the kids have to say. And the one kid put it nicely. He said, because in maths, I'm not doing anything. I'm just doing maths. But here I'm creating apps. I'm making video games that I can show my parents, I can show my friends, I can share online. See that why? Unwittingly, I put that why back into the education for them. That why was intrinsic motivation, the joy of creating something. And when that bug bit them, then there's no cure for it. Because it's a kind of addiction, the addiction of creating, the addiction of doing something that gives you meaning. And that's what this generation is all about. They're about meaning. They are purpose-driven. Tell me why. So when our kids ask us why, they're not being arrogant and disrespectful. They're just saying, Mom, Dad, motivate me. I need to be motivated. Then I will do this to the best of my ability. So that's the one thing I found. But then I went further down that rabbit hole because I looked at history. I looked at people like Julius Caesar on a non-Muslim side of things, Beethoven, Shakespeare. And then in the Muslim side, I looked at people like Usama bin Zaid, the Sahabi, Fatih Sultan, the conqueror of Istanbul, Constantinople, Muhammad bin Qasim, the person who brought Islam to India. And I saw something common between all of them, which was that they all started in their early teens. They didn't go to university and start at 25 years old and say, now I'm going to find a career for myself. They started in their early teens. And we hear this a lot when our children say, Mom, stop treating me like a child. We don't know how much of truth there is in that, because in no pre-industrial society was there ever such a thing as teenagers. Do you know that? The whole concept of teenagers and this mandatory schooling system only came out in industrial society, and that was to create a society that is easy to control and who listen to the master, the sage on the stage, the teacher. The authority is always correct. So the whole teenage system was, think about it. Not even Shakespeare wrote about teenagers, right? Because when you do the research, Romeo and Juliet were teenagers. I think Juliet was 13 and Romeo was 14 or 15 years old. But did he ever once refer to them as teenagers? No, he didn't. Because in that era, including in the Sharia, you're either a child or an adult. There's no intermediary phase. Now, what we've done by embracing this colonial idea, and Ashraf mentioned this right at the outset, and that triggered me, the whole word, decolonizing education. We've gone so used to this idea of teenagers that we don't know the kind of damage we are doing to our kids. Look in Western countries, teenage angst, teenage depression, teenage suicide. Why? Because these human beings are going through a sort of cognitive dissonance, where their minds, their bodies, their emotions are telling them, I'm an adult. And society is telling them, you're a kid. You do what I tell you to do. You sit in that class. You do what we want you to do. And so what happens is those beautiful, high potential, formative years of their teens are wasted doing what? Just doing things they're not passionate about. And then they go to university. More boring stuff. And then they come out at 24 and 25 and we say, my son is 25 years old and he doesn't have a direction in life because you've taken away the most formative years. You know what psychologists tell us? They tell us that we peak in our teenagers when it comes to learning. And then it's just a decline right till the rest of our lives. So that valuable time, that valuable potential we've squandered. So we've just launched a syllabus for high schools, right? A coding and robotics syllabus. And the first thing we did, we launched it this year. The first thing we did was we decided to test this thing with kids. So one school in Pietermaritzburg, a special needs school, contacted us. They said, we'd like to be part of this test. And so they decided to test it with special needs kids. So this principal and I were speaking. She said, there's this one kid in particular, he's quite bad. This kid has always got his head down. He's on the autism spectrum. He's always head down, couldn't get going with any learning, with any school. The schools all rejected him. His parents have given up on him. This is our last resort. What can we do? So I says, well, okay, put him on our program. Let's see what comes of it. She phones me a couple of days later. She says, this kid blew through the module, which was supposed to take a month to do, in 6 hours. In 6 hours, this so-called special needs kid blew through a module that takes an average kid a month to do in 6 hours. So I said to her, you know what? I think special in his case means extraordinary, not special in a sense of deficient in any way. And now he's doing that course and he's thoroughly enjoying it. It's because we put the why back, that intrinsic motivation, the ability to create, learn, process, create. I guarantee you every one of the speakers here today have this ability to use technology to learn, process what they learned, and to create something. And if we give our kids this, if we give them this power, there is no even concern about them abusing technology or letting technology abuse them or wasting too much of time on technology. That'll become distasteful for them because when they get addicted to creating, whatever it is, code, writing articles, blog posts, whatever it is, once they get bitten by that bug, when we just put that little golden Y in there, then we'll find that they fly. I will stop there. There was so much more I wanted to talk about, but here's an invitation or a reverse invitation. I'm asking you to invite me to your communities, your schools, to talk more about this. This is one of the things that I'm very strong on. We heard about this today, where if you look at the Western way of looking at things, it's down there. They've cut off their link to the past. For the West, all our morals and our science and tech is in the future. Nietzsche's subjective morality. But for Muslims, we say this. Some Muslims will say this. Nah, modern technology is not for us. We look to the past. But a balanced view for a Muslim is this. Our morals and values comes from the past. But our technology is in the future. We must be ahead of everyone, like Al-Khwarizmi or Ibn Haytham. Did you know that Ibn Haytham stated Newton's first law 500 years before Newton? Newton stole from him and never credited him. Did you know that he stated Kepler's law of planetary motion 600 years before Kepler? Did you know that he used the scientific method 500 years before Roger Bacon? This was just one Muslim scientist. They were so far ahead that if that civilization continued, the experts say we wouldn't have landed a person on the moon in the 1960s, we would have landed them in the 1460s. But unfortunately, something went wrong and that civilization lost it and it went to the West, and we know Renaissance, etc. Okay, I'm going to stop there and I think we're going to do some Q&A. Thank you so much.